Our acceleration here in the Traverse RS. Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we're gonna be going over a 2021 Chevy Traverse RS. But first and foremost, a huge shout out and thank you to the Larry Miller Chevy here in Murray for giving me some time with this Traverse. Check out the inventory in the link below. Let's get straight into the video. Now, under the hood of the Traverse, we have a naturally aspirated 3.6 liter V6 that goes through a 9-speed automatic transmission. Fuel economy 17 around town and then 25 on the highway, with power outputs being 310 horsepower and then 266 pound-feet of torque. Now let's go over the front end of the Traverse RS. So first off, the hood is unchanged for the RS package, but as you can see down here, we've got these full LED lights with the projector bulbs, and then we've got the fog lights just down below. And then notice that the whole front grille has been blacked out. You've got the RS logo and then the blacked out Chevy logo as well, with the blacked out kind of like bumper portion right down here. And actually does have an air dam as well for better aerodynamics, which is pretty cool. But other than that, that is the front end on the RS. Now coming on the side here, we've got two 55mm tires wrapped around 20-inch wheels in the front and over in the rear as well. And then we do have dark metallic gray for the coloration on the wheels as part of this RS package. And then notice that the Chevy bow tie on the front's been blacked out, but they didn't change anything there on the center portion of the wheel. Got your Traverse logo, and then notice that they kind of like split the mirrors. You've got the body color on the top, and then it's just blacked out there on the bottom portion. But other than that, here is your full side view. Now let's pop into the back of the Traverse. So first off, you can see we have a flat loading floor, but we actually do get some storage just underneath. So plenty of storage back here on the Traverse. And then there is a little 12 volt here on the back. And then as for the rear seats, you just have to pull this little strap right here. It'll throw down the headrest, and then you can just throw down the rest of the seat if you do need to kind of have a little bit more space back here. And then when you want to pull it up, you just pull the little strap, and then you just manually pull the headrest back up. But other than that, that is the rear hatch area of the Traverse. Now let's go over the rest of the rear of the Traverse. So first off, I think the taillights actually look pretty cool, but I think it would even look better if they took the taillights from the Camaro and just like plopped them on here. I think it would work with like the bodywork and everything here in the rear. And then you can see again, blacked out Chevy bow tie, and then you've got the dual exhaust tips out here on the bottom portion. You've got your little RS logo right there. And other than that, that's the back end of the Traverse. Now let's go over the door panel here in the back of the Traverse. So first off, we've got this beautiful soft touch all around with the nice stitching all throughout. And then I actually like the look of the door handle itself. And then here are the seats in the Traverse. So notice it's all blacked out, and you have that same stitching you can see on the door panel here on the seats. And then they do have adjustments for the seats themselves, which is another nice little touch. But let's actually pop in. So first off, here for the second row, if you're wondering, if I sit all the way up, I'm 5'11", so there's what my headroom looks like. And then here's what my legroom looks like. And then you do get climate controls here in the back of the Traverse with a little charging area for your kids here in the back. And then these seats do come with these little armrests that just pop right down. But for entertainment's sake, I'm gonna pop into the third row, which kind of got to squeeze really hard. Okay, so now that I'm in here in the third row, if I sit all the way up, I pretty much almost touch the top. And then legroom, I mean, I fit back here, but my legs are pretty cramped. And then I do have some like storage cup holder space here, and then they actually do give you a USB on both sides. So there's like charging areas for all of the people here in the Traverse. But that's the back. Let's squeeze over to the front. Going over the door panel here in the front, notice again, you've got all that soft touch with the stitching all throughout, and then you've got a little door handle just down below with all of your window controls and then the mirror adjustments. And then we do have a speaker for the Bose sound system, and then notice that you can set this so that the rear hatch will only open at certain portions, which is pretty nice. And then coming to the front seats, just as nice as the rear, so you get all the soft touch with the same stitching all throughout. The front seats are fully power adjustable, and then here's what the pedals look like just down below, and then you got the little release for the front, and then you guys can see you've got a little light control right there. And then as for the steering wheel, it is manually adjustable, and there's one more look before we pop in. Now let's go over the steering wheel here in the Traverse. So we've got the soft touch leather around the whole steering wheel, and then they've blacked out the stitching and then the Chevy bow tie there on the center portion. And we do have these controls here for the center screen, your voice command, phone controls, radio controls are on the back. And then you've got your cruise control over here with your heated steering wheel button, and then that's for the collision assistance. And then just behind that, you've got the stock for the turn signal, and then the other side, you got the windshield wiper stock. And that's all for the steering wheel. Now popping over here to the gauge cluster, most of the gauges are in analog format, but you do get a screen here in the center that gives you different bits of information on the Traverse. So if you guys have watched any of my like Chevy 1500 or 2500 or 3500 reviews, then you notice that this gauge cluster looks super similar with the whole screen format and everything. So if you kind of are familiar with the trucks, then you'll be familiar with how this works here in the Traverse. Now coming over to the infotainment system, let's go over the camera system part of the Traverse. So we do have a backup camera with trajectory lines. They do turn with the steering wheel, and then you do have little trajectory lines here on the bird's eye view. But overall, the camera system here on the Traverse is really good. I mean, there's a bunch of different viewpoints. Again, if you're familiar with my truck reviews here with Chevy, then you guys will be very familiar with this camera system. I mean, it shows you literally everything on the vehicle, and you can even zoom in on the receiver hitch if you are hooking up to a trailer with a Traverse. So from a camera system aspect, really solid, shows you everything. So parking this should never be an issue. Now actually going over this infotainment system, response time is really good on the infotainment system. It does come with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and then you can actually go back to the camera system with the infotainment system. Pretty cool that it gives you that little thing if you guys aren't in reverse and you just want to use the camera system. And then this does come with the climate controls. Remember, you have a dual zone climate for the front, and then you do have the rear climate, and you can control the rear climate here from the front. You can turn it on or off, all that kind of stuff. So pretty neat with everything there, but that's the infotainment system. Now, just down below the infotainment system, we've got like shortcut buttons and analog controls for it, and then we've got our controls here for the climate system. Again, got the dual zone here at the front, and then we got this button right here, which it totally just blew my mind. I don't know, maybe I'm just like tired or something today, but like you hold this, and there's storage space in there, but like I don't know, like I love this. I know it's not like that crazy, but like that's just cool. Like it's like one of those like bookshelf things that you have in like a really fancy home that like you pull back a book or something, you have like a hidden room. This is like the same thing but with a touchscreen. I don't know. Sorry, I'm weird. The Traverse does come with heated seats, and then you can see down here USB, a little 12 volt, all that kind of stuff. And then here's the shifter for that 9-speed automatic. It does have the low range, and then you can shift the gears yourself with the little manual shift buttons right there on the side. A couple of cup holders. And then we got a parking brake, and then we do have our drive line select here, and then you've got your stability control and then your lane departure assistance. So with this is kind of like a drive line select, but then also a drive mode select. So the Traverse is normally in 2-wheel drive to get you better fuel economy, but if you're in snowy conditions, you can twist it to the side and that'll pop it into the all-wheel drive mode, and then you can pop it into the off-road mode, and then you can turn it another time to put it over into the towing mode. So you just have those different drive modes to do depending on what you're using the Traverse for. The nice thing about the dial is if you turn it, you can go from the tow straight to the 2-wheel drive. But then if you turn it the opposite way, you can go straight back. So like you can turn it either way. It's just cool that it functions both ways. A lot of these you have to turn it through all the way, whereas this goes back and forth. Hopefully that makes sense. Now here's the center console. Again, we got more stitching here and soft touch, and then this is actually really big. I mean, for the size of SUV this is, it's got a pretty big center console. More soft touch and stitching here on the dash, and then opening it up, you guys can see we've got a regular glove box in there. And if you guys are wondering, I'm just leaving the paper here because it just needs floor mats, and I didn't want to mess that up or anything. Anyways, continuing up here to the very top of the Traverse, you can see that we've got a regular little light controls, universal garage door opener. This one doesn't have a sunroof or anything like that, but there's vents here at the top for the rear passengers, which is another nice little touch. Now that we're done with the interior on this Traverse, let's quickly get into the pricing. So in terms of pricing, this Traverse stickers for about $48,000 for any type of market adjustment, which is about the same price as like a V6 GT Durango. That all being said, let's take this Traverse RS out and see how it drives. Let's quickly go over the visibility here on the Traverse before we set off. So visibility over the hood, it's actually really easy to see out of it. I'd actually put this above average compared to most of its competitors. Most of them have like really long hoods, and so their visibility just isn't as good. And then here's your visibility through both of the mirrors of the Traverse. And then here's all throughout the rest of the rear, which for the rear visibility, I'd rate that at about average compared to the competitors in terms of the windows. They're all about the same size. And then guess what? This one also has the camera mirror from a visibility standpoint. So I guess that puts this up a little bit above average because most competitors in this segment don't have the camera mirror. And that all being said, well, let's set off. We are getting up and going here in the 2021 Chevy Traverse RS. And first off, let's talk about the road noise and the ride quality here with the Traverse. So from a ride quality perspective, and you guys hopefully can see through here onto the camera, this road pretty beat up. It happens here in Utah after the winter, which we've had a really mild winter, so the roads haven't gotten as beat up as they normally do. But there's just a bunch of like inconsistencies in the road and all that kind of stuff, and it doesn't upset the Traverse. It rides really smooth. I would put this at average, maybe slightly above average compared to other vehicles in this segment from a smoothness perspective with the ride quality and smoothness. Kind of weird with my word choice today. But anyways, then from a road noise perspective, you hear pretty much no wind noise. You get a little bit of tire noise, but again, it's hard to differentiate this from any other car. So I'm gonna rank that at average, and we'll see how the steering is. Steering's really light. You can definitely feel the size of the Traverse though. It doesn't feel massive or anything like that, but you can definitely feel that it's a longer SUV. It doesn't drive the same as kind of like those smaller SUVs. Even like a Jeep Grand Cherokee, for example, drives smaller than this Traverse. So just to give you guys kind of an idea of how it feels. But yeah, so far, I mean, it does a really good job at all the stuff that this should do as a daily driver, third row, family hauler SUV. Well, we're gonna get our acceleration, but first off, we're going over these train tracks. Boop, boop, boop. Yeah, they don't upset it whatsoever. But let's get our acceleration here in the Traverse RS. Yeah, pretty decent from an acceleration standpoint. I mean, you guys heard the power figures. It's right in line with where it needs to be. Again, think Dodge Durango, Kia Telluride, Hyundai Palisade. All those vehicles, they all have about the same power figures. They're either in the low or high 200s, low 300s, or some of them are in like the mid to higher 300s, depending on the exact package you get with the power output. So they're all pretty similar. And so this just pretty much accelerates right where it should be. It's not any slower, any faster than its competitors. And that'll actually get me into summing things up with the Traverse. So first off, from an exterior aesthetics perspective, I'll be honest, I mean, you guys saw the exterior of the Traverse. This RS package does definitely dress it up a little bit, but the Traverse just, I mean, it looks like a pretty much like just a regular Chevy SUV. It doesn't do anything crazy stylistically. Like the new Blazer, for example, or the Trailblazer, those look pretty crazy and they've got a good road presence, whereas this definitely a lot more subdued. So I guess if you want something that's not as flashy, then the exterior of the Traverse is definitely going to fit the bill for you. And then from an interior perspective, material wise and all that, it's right where it needs to be. Most competitors, again, at this price range and everything, the materials are pretty similar to what this Traverse has. There's some that are a little bit nicer, but they're all pretty similar here in this price range. And then from a tech standpoint, the Traverse is really strong. The camera mirror definitely helps out a lot with practicality, especially in a third row SUV. That's a huge plus, because if you have kids and people in the back and all that kind of stuff, obviously their heads get in the way, and so having a camera that doesn't get obstructed by people definitely helps out. And then the touchscreen's really good. Just from a tech perspective, this is actually really solid, and that's something that I really like with Chevys. But yeah, so as an overall package, I mean, it's right where it needs to be with its competitors. The only thing that I would say to Chevy is, maybe change the styling up a little bit so that this looks just a little bit more so on the, if I was spending $50,000, I'd probably want my vehicle to look a little bit different than what this looks like. Now, that is going to sum things up for our video on this 2021 Chevy Traverse RS. And again, a huge shout out and thank you to the Larry Miller Chevy here in Murray for giving me some time with this Traverse. Check out the inventory in the link below. I'll see all of you in that next video.